With the recent release of LR Golden Frieza plus Gogeta, it's time to rank every Tanabata in Transcendent Campaign Dokkanfest from worst to best. While the main focus will be on how strong these units were at the time of their release, we'll also take into account how well they performed/aged for the difficult content released around their time. Although the first official Tanabata celebration began in 2018, we'll also include Dokkanfest from 2016 and 2017 that were released in the same July time slot. And to no one's surprise, Super Saiyan 3 Broly finds himself dead last on this list. Like pretty much every Broly released before him, Super Saiyan 3 Broly was a glass cannon. He gained 100% attack at the start of turn, and an additional 12% attack and minus 10% defense per key sphere obtained. He was a good damage dealer, but his level of offense wasn't worth this unit literally having zero defense at times. Because it was inconsistent to give Super Saiyan 3 Broly a bunch of orbs every turn, he ended up hitting as hard as the other Neo God leads on average, while also being a massive defensive liability. He was considered one of the worst, if not the worst Neo God lead, and is easily one of the most disappointing Dokkanfest releases ever. Number 9. Tech Full Power Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Tech Super Saiyan 4 Goku was a slightly upgraded version of STR Super Saiyan 4 Goku, who was released over a year ago. He had a medium chance to counter super attacks, gained 100% attack at the start of turn, and gained up to 70% attack and defense the more HP you had remaining. Simply put, if you were at 70% HP or higher, he would outperform his STR counterpart, with STR Super Saiyan 4 Goku doing more damage once your HP was below 70%. Many people were disappointed by him being barely better than his second anniversary version, and it also didn't help that his full power category was a complete mess. He was a strong unit, capable of outputting very high attack stats, but he ultimately falls short of the heights reached by the units ranked above him. These next 3 units can realistically be rearranged in whatever order you want, as they were all powerful on release, but had several flaws that held them back from being exceptional. Going in chronological order, LR Blue Kaioken Goku and Evolution Blue Vegeta were one of the hardest hitting units in the game on release. They gained 70% attack and defense at the start of turn, and gained an additional 7% attack and defense per key sphere obtained. Furthermore, for every rainbow key sphere obtained, they gained 2 ki, a 7% chance to crit, and an additional normal attack up to a maximum of 3 times within a turn. With 3 or more rainbow key spheres obtained, this unit could attack up to 5 times within the turn, and they dominated Super Battle Road, Extreme Super Battle Road, and the legendary Goku event. However, this unit suffered from 3 main problems. Firstly, they had a very mediocre leader skill, giving 150% to stats instead of 170% to all-out struggle or joint forces category allies, the former being one of the worst categories in the game. Secondly, this unit didn't possess prepared for battle in their link set, meaning they linked poorly with non-Universal Survival Saga category allies. More importantly, however, it was very difficult to take advantage of the final part of their passive, as they had no reliable rainbow orb changers on any of their teams, and it was a massive struggle getting them the orbs they needed. On an ideal turn, they could easily look like the best unit in the game, but overall, they were a bit too inconsistent and ended up just being good on release. LR Tech Super Gogeta was a worse version of STR Vegito, who had been released almost a year prior. They were nearly identical in base, with the main difference being that Gogeta had a high chance to create rainbow key spheres. Tech Gogeta's defense stat was roughly 2500 higher than Vegito's at the rainbow level, making him considerably tankier in base. The main reason why Super Gogeta was considered inferior, however, came down to their transformations. Vegito transformed when HP was 77% or less starting from turn 4, while Tech Gogeta transformed when HP was 70% or more starting from turn 4. At the time, bosses were rarely one-shotting you, and were typically whittling away at your HP, so Gogeta's transformation condition was considered to be worse than Vegito's, who could essentially transform when you needed it. While Gogeta was far better defensively than Vegito once transformed, he dealt less than a third of the damage Vegito did. Additionally, Gogeta's damage reduction and scouter abilities only lasted for 5 turns, whereas Vegito always countered and had 10 turns of scouter. This unit greatly disappointed the community on release, as many expected him to eclipse his year-old Vegito counterpart in every aspect of his kit. However, it is important to note that STR Vegito was still a top 3 unit in the game when Tech Gogeta released, so Gogeta being slightly worse still meant that he was one of the best units in the game. He performed very well in the God of Destruction event, the legendary Goku and Vegeta events, and Extreme Super Battle Road. Should he have been better? Of course. Does that mean he was bad? Absolutely not. LR Tech Gogeta was still very powerful and a comfortable option on every one of his teams. Unlike the previous 2 units, LR Super Saiyan 4 Goku was perfectly designed when he came out for the content available at the time. Super Saiyan 4 Goku was rocking 40% damage reduction in slot 1, and could reach good defensive numbers after receiving an attack and after 1 defensive stack from his 18-key super. He could stand by into Oob for 1 turn after receiving 5 or more attacks in battle. Oob was nigh invincible with several type key spheres obtained, and was arguably the best tank in the game. After charge count was 30 or more, you could transform into full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku, who was perhaps the most impressive unit in the game, especially on his first turn, where he had guaranteed guard paired with 50% damage reduction in slot 1. This unit was a direct counter to Stage 8 of the Birth of the Shadow Dragons event, and was one of the best units in the game for what was considered the hardest fight at the time. However, Goku's biggest flaw became apparent just 1 month later, with the release of the Future Saga Red Zone stages. Many of these fights were short, and featured bosses that hit extremely hard right away. Super Saiyan 4 Goku could take massive damage even in slot 1 from enemy attacks, especially if it was the first hit he received or before he got a stack of his 18 key up. He also had to sit in slot 1 to get his full damage reduction, despite not being able to cover it as effectively anymore, and it was risky running him in slots 2 or 3. Additionally, since these harder fights were shorter, it became much more inconsistent to meet Goku's standby conditions, as you couldn't control where the boss was attacking. There is perhaps no other major premium unit in the history of the game that aged as fast as LR Super Saiyan 4 Goku. He quickly became a risky choice in the Future Saga Red Zone content, especially against tough enemies like Fusion Zamasu. While Super Saiyan 4 Goku was stronger the day he came out than the other 2 LRs, he aged rapidly in just 1 month. Meanwhile, the other 2 units remained top tier not only on release, but throughout the entire year they came out. To reiterate, these 3 can be rearranged in several ways, but since I have to rank them, I'd put Super Saiyan 4 Goku at number 8, Tech Gogeta at number 7, and the LR Blues at number 6. At number 5 comes LR Ultra Instinct Goku. Unlike many transforming units, Tech UI Goku was really good in base when he came out, having a 70% chance to evade enemies' attacks, 50% damage reduction against the first hit he receives, and 15% damage reduction and guard against all attacks after the first hit. Starting from the 5th turn from the character's entry, UI Sign Goku could activate his domain and transform into UI Goku. His domain was incredibly good, allowing superclass enemies to do more damage and gain the ability to nullify attacks that are guaranteed to hit, making it possible to evade these attacks. UI Goku had the busted ability of countering with tremendous power after evading an attack, and on his initial turn he had guaranteed dodge. He built up dodge and crit chance by 20% with every attack evaded, up to a maximum of 77%, and overall he was an absolute behemoth. The biggest flaw with this unit was that his domain was from his 5th turn and not from the 5th turn from the start of battle. If you didn't have his transformation available by the time you reached Physical 17 and Golden Frieza in the Goku and Frieza event, you could get sniped very easily by the dodge cancelling duo. His counters also didn't do damage to Goku and Frieza until after he super attacked, but after attacking, he was capable of melting Goku and Frieza's HP. This unit was very competent in all of the tough fights in 2024, and is still somewhat runnable to this day. Number 4. LR Golden Frieza plus Gogeta. Right off the bat, the two biggest flaws with this unit are their leader skill and Golden Frieza's defensive capabilities. Their team has a very limited pool of top tier options, and is in need of a lot of help, but it can still be run very effectively on LR Omega and LR Blue Goku plus Vegeta's teams. Golden Frieza possesses an incredibly powerful active skill taunt that can be used starting from turn 1 as long as you have 4 more extreme class allies on the team. While this taunt is very valuable and supremely busted, outside of his active turn, Frieza's low defensive stat can result in him taking significant damage from the hardest hitting bosses, even through 70% damage reduction and guard. The Gogeta portion of the card is very powerful, being capable of reaching 100% dodge chance with 10 or more key spheres obtained, and can output a very impressive amount of damage on his active turn, while also massively buffing all allies' defense, and can excel in both Special Battle and Supreme Magnificent Battle Next Generation Saiyans, but doesn't quite dominate Festival of Battles the same way some of the other top 10 LRs in 2025 do. LR Frieza plus Gogeta earned the number 4 spot on this list through Gogeta's incredible dodging abilities, team-wide support, and the unmatched utility of Golden Frieza's turn 1 taunt. Number 3. LR Gohan and Goten. This unit was greatly underestimated based on their initial details, but they ended up being a dominant force almost on the same level as LR Kale and Caulifla. First off, they had a fantastic leader skill, giving Siblings Bond category allies 4 key, 170% attack, and 150% to HP and defense, as well as Goku's family category allies 3 key, 170% to attack, and 130% to HP and defense. This allowed you to run some of the best units in the game on one team, and at the time, only the Kamehameha team was considered better. LR Gohan and Goten gained 58% attack and defense at the start of turn, launched an additional attack that had a medium chance of becoming a super attack, and gained 1 key and 10% attack and defense for every attack performed, up to a maximum of 5 key and 100% stats. These boosts were calculated separately, resulting in a total increase of 216% attack and defense after performing their 10th attack in battle. They were capable of dealing monstrous damage, while also holding up quite well defensively. They were a force to be reckoned with in the legendary Goku event and Super Battle Road, and they were comfortably the second best unit in the game after LR Kale and Caulifla. The only notable flaws were their heavily restricted active skill, which was difficult to see, and the lack of key links such as Prepared for Battle in their link set. Even with these few shortcomings, LR Gohan and Goten stood as a powerhouse on release, and they are easily the 3rd best unit on this list relative to their era. Number 2. LR Vegeta and Trunks. One of the most powerful releases in Dokkan history, LR Vegeta and Trunks were unrivaled when they came out in the middle of 2022. They led one of the largest categories ever in Bond of Parent and Child, as well as Future Saga, and gave an extra 30% to stats to Battle of Fate characters. As the first attacker in a turn, Vegeta and Trunks guard all attacks and gain 70% attack and defense. They also built up key, defense, and crit chance with every attack received, up to a maximum of 5 key, 75% defense, and 35% crit. Combined with their start of turn attack and defense buff, and the ability to stack attack and defense on their 18 key super, Vegeta and Trunks were quite literally unkillable in all of the tough Red Zone fights, and they dominated in the Cell Max event. They were solid offensively and absolute gods defensively, and they possessed one of the greatest teams we had seen in quite some time. They are the strongest Tanabata Dokkanfest LR by far, and on any other list, they would be without question number 1. However, while this next unit technically wasn't a Tanabata release, there is one unit who surpasses Vegeta and Trunks as the strongest Dokkanfest released in this time slot. Number 1. AGL Super Vegito. Released on July 7th, 2016, AGL Super Vegito descended onto Dokkan as the very first God Lead. He introduced the biggest leader skill jump we had ever seen in the game, giving AGL types 3 ki and 70% to HP, attack, and defense. Not only did he have by far the best leader skill in the game, he was also the first summonable unit to have 7 links instead of 6. He boasted 2 of the 3 best key links in the game, and also had an incredible Saiyan links hit to boot. Super Vegito reduced damage received from normal attacks by 80%, making him completely invincible from normal attacks. Although he could still take damage from enemy supers, the massive HP and defense increase from his leader skill, on top of the fact that you could just run units that seal enemy super attacks alongside Vegito, resulted in super attacks not being detrimental to him at all. He was also the first unit in the game to have the ability to counter attacks. Every time Vegito was hit by a normal attack, he countered by hitting the enemy with a special attack. Most of Super Vegito's damage came from his counter attacks, each of which did slightly less damage than his super attack. With just 3 counters in a turn, he was capable of outdamaging every unit in the game, and he was still in the discussion as the hardest hitting unit in the game months later due to this ludicrous potential counter damage. Vegito was so powerful that it was optimal to run rare units such as Ninja Murasaki and Oceanus Shenron, as they were the only AGL ceiling units at the time. He was easily the best unit in the game, and completely warped the meta similarly to STR Super Gogeta on release. Super Vegito was simultaneously the ultimate tank and the ultimate spear, being the pinnacle of both offense and defense, and he would remain relevant years after he was released. Without question, AGL Super Vegito is the most powerful Dokkanfest released in this Tanabata time slot, and he stands as one of the most powerful cards in Dokkan history.